Welcome. You are listening to the Fat and Furious podcast. In this podcast series, your host, Steve Bennett, father of 7, best-selling author and adventurer, will be joined by 23 of the world's most forward-thinking medical professionals. Doctors, authors, and top nutritionists, where he'll share the truth behind living healthier and happier for longer.
In this episode, I'm going to be talking to the husband and wife team of Katie and Giancarlo Caldesi. Now, the Caldesis are owners of Cafe Caldesi in London, and they also have an amazing cookery school. They first came to public attention when they featured in the BBC Two series, Return to Tuscany. They're both regular visitors on screen, appearing as guests on a vast array of food programmes, such as the BBC One's MasterChef, Saturday Kitchen, and Sunday Brunch, and many, many more. The Italian government has awarded Giancarlo the honour of Calvary for his work with food. And along with Katie, they've written many very successful cookbooks. In 2011, at the age of 59, Giancarlo's vision became blurry. Soon afterwards, he couldn't even play football with his younger sons. Sadly, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. By 2014, Giancarlo had put lots and lots of weight on and he'd ballooned to 17 stone. And his HbA1c levels were dangerously high. Even worse, later that year, it was established that he had a severe gluten intolerance. It felt like his world of food and everything that he loved was forbidden. And although determined to fight, he was very low. No more pasta, no pizza, and no more bread. Imagine that for an Italian master chef who for over 60 years was so used to eating his beloved pasta at least once, sometimes twice a day, being told that he had to stop. What he didn't realize, though, is that this diagnosis would probably save his life. Now, 5 years on, his diabetes is in full remission. It's been a difficult journey for Giancarlo, but he feels that if he can do it, then anyone can. A life-saving lifestyle is the name of today's podcast. I'm joined by Katie and Giancarlo Caldesi. How are you both?
Good, thank you very much.
Hi, Steve. Now, we kind of know each other because we did some cooking programs recently, but for those that don't, you are a phenomenal couple. I love the story about how you met. You are living proof that if anybody can turn from being diabetic to putting it in remission, anybody can. And I say that with all sincerity because how an Italian famous chef can put it into remission, if you can do it, anybody can, or it's possible for anybody else to do it. But I also want to get Katie's story about what observations you've got and your inspiration. Some of your recipes are, in my house. We probably do more cooking in my house with recipes from your book, and because you're so, it's just inspirational to my own book, so there you go. So take us right back to maybe even when you very first met, and then talk us through your lifestyle changes together. And unlike the cooking program the other week where it's all about the recipe, I really want to hear your story in detail so everybody understands about how you can put diabetes into remission. And let's say straight off the bat that while some doctors still believe it's irreversible, that it's progressive and there is no way that you can stop diabetes, there is so much proof, and you're living proof, that you can. So tell us about the journey.
So I was a painter, and 21 years ago Giancarlo commissioned me to paint a mural in his restaurant. And I always loved food.
Was that long ago?
I always loved food, and pretty soon I was washing my hands after painting murals all day and then changing from my painter's whites into my chef's whites and going down in the kitchen and starting to cook with the guys in the kitchen. And I was on vegetables for some time, vegetable prep in the kitchen. And I began to cook, and then I stopped painting. And then together we wrote our first book, which was about Giancarlo's mother's cooking. Mm-hmm. And we've now finished, this is our 12th book. Wow. I've just finished writing our 13th for coming out next year, but this is our 12th book.
Almost one a year, plus a lot of BBC programmes in between.
Yes,
I think you've been on virtually every cooking program together out there, and you had a whole documentary following around Tuscany.
We did, and we opened a cookery school over there, and we were married.
Yes, we were married as well, yeah.
So tell me about that series on the BBC. What was that all about?
No, well, basically it was called Return to Tuscany, and it was just my life in Tuscany, really. It was very interesting because I was able to really go back and do a few things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise, and it was challenging because we had, of course, we had a lot of difficulties opening a cooking school, but in a sense was an amazing time. It really was an exhilarating, amazing time. It really was. When you look back, interesting, really.
I remember meeting the producer for the first time in our restaurant in Marylebone, and he said, "So tell me what's going on in your life." And I said, "Well, not really very much, but we are opening a cookery school in Tuscany, and we're opening a cookery school in London, and we're getting married." And he said, "Well, what's the time span of this?" And I said, "Oh, actually, I've never really thought about it. So it's all happening within 6 weeks." He went, "And not much is happening in your life. In 6 weeks, we're opening 2 cookery schools in different countries and getting married." I went, "Yeah, okay, quite a lot's happening." And so he said, therein lies a documentary. So they made it
so
about
that was that.
our lives.
Yeah.
So you're getting married, you open the cookery school, you have 2 wonderful children, business is going well, books are selling well, people are coming to your restaurants, people are coming to your schools. But Giancarlo, you're getting a bit bigger and bigger, and talk me through this sort of turning point.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because I wasn't being very well. I think it happened probably, I was 46, 50. I would say I'm 67 now, so let's say about 15 years ago or something like that, which things start getting about 13, 15 years ago, things are getting a bit strange. I remember the first time I had a problem, we were in Eastbourne with our very young children then, and I was by the sea, and I went into the sea, and suddenly I said to Katie, "Can you come in please, because I really can't bear standing on the sea." And my feet, they were so cold, so cold, and I was struggling to get back.
I thought he was just being Italian because this is Eastbourne where I'm from. I'm very proud of our British sea, and I just thought he was being Italian, but to be fair, he wasn't. It was
no,
more
really,
serious.
it was also what I struggled was coming out and walking on the pebbles, and the pebbles was like if shards of glass going through your feet. Honestly, it was, I don't know, truly torture, and so never thought much of it. Then you get on, then you go, and then obviously there's other symptoms where I used to get up in the morning and my eyes, I used to go like this, and doing that, it was so hurt, it hurt so much, like if it was you're wearing glass eyes, like you go sand or something really abrasive, and then, okay, that was the second symptoms. Plus, my feet didn't feel right. I couldn't kick the football really.
Yeah.
It hurts. Yeah. So I couldn't run. I couldn't jump as much as I used to jump.
And with 2 young sons, that's depressing.
So lots of things. But the problem is on where I didn't know there was diabetes. I knew much later. It's such a gradual changes that it's like you go 5 fingers. One day the little finger doesn't move that much. Don't think much. Then it's not like you're going, "Oh, can't move my hand." Then it's visual. Yeah. So they stop slowly, and suddenly your hand is here. You don't move anymore, but you like, "Oh, well, that's Giancarlo. He can't move his hand. So what's the problem?" The problem was not that. It's the fact that the knowledge was missing of my disability. And so we go back from bad to worse. Then obviously,
and that's sort of the physical side, but also, Katie, you've said in the past that also when you met him and married him, he was funny, he was hilarious, life and soul in the kitchen and in the restaurant,
really,
from the house, back house. She did honestly say that about you, and you said, but that was starting to disappear along with some of the physical symptoms.
Yeah, and he was getting quite sort of grumpy. You were grumpy. And,
Never.
they call it hangry. He was hangry, a mixture of
it's true,
hungry and angry.
Yeah.
And would come back from work and just be so hungry that he would dive into the fruit bowl and just eat like a whole melon and a couple of
it's
oranges,
incredible.
a couple of bananas. So, or he would cook pasta and he'd cook too much pasta for one portion and then just eat it straight out of the saucepan. So looking back, he had classic textbook symptoms of diabetes type 2. He had the weight around the middle, he had the hangry mood, he was rubbing his eyes, the blurred vision.
Going to the loo more
going to the
often,
loo, a lot of thirst. He was constantly drinking bottles and bottles of water, not even pouring it into a glass, just bottles of water he would down. Absolutely classic. If we'd only known, we would have said, well, that's type 2 diabetes, you've got to go and get checked out. But we didn't know.
It's like gradual, isn't it? It's when you live with someone, you don't notice it.
No, you don't notice it.
They
But
say
that's
that,
the problem.
they say, how do you get a frog to... How do you scald a frog? They say, you could put a frog, he jumps into a boiling pot of water, he'll jump straight back out. But if you slowly raise the temperature 1 degree every few minutes, that frog doesn't know he's been boiled to life and ends up dying inside the glass jar. And it's the same
That's a charming
thing,
analogy.
It's a terrible one. I was not, by the way, comparing you to a frog. No.
I'll run
It could be a prince, you never know.
I'll run a hot
Or
bath
a
for him later.
princess. Yeah.
So
No, but that actually, seriously enough, that is true, because it's like in a kitchen where you start handling hot things. At the beginning, even 10 degrees was too hot. At the end, you go 50 degrees and you're all right. Nothing burns.
Yeah.
And it's true. But the massive problem is when you get that level and then the family gets round you and they think, that's my dad. Your dad can't get up from the chair and he's like that.
The boys used to have
him.
to do his shoelaces up
And
because he
so
couldn't reach down.
that becomes you,
Yeah.
and then my dad can't really stand on one leg, but it's my dad anyway.
Yeah.
So it's the critical factor of diabetes is not just you being unwell, but you bring the family into the same mode, and then you with diabetes are the selfish person ever because you only care about yourself actually. I'm going to get better, but you don't. And the family runs around you because at the end of the day, while you have a family, they do love you really, and you do love them too. And that kind of love that it is inseparable. So you accept anything that person turned into. Because if you didn't, you would just walk away. You want to die by yourself, mate. I don't care. So really, it's a vicious circle which you really are bringing the family into such a stress that you don't see it. But you don't see it.
You don't see it, you don't realise.
No, you don't.
How did this all come to a head, Katie? What was the turning point?
Well, I had IBS for some years and always had a bloated stomach and painful stomach. And I read that book, Wheat Belly, and decided to go gluten-free. And Giancarlo, being an open-minded man, said, "Oh, well, I'll try that as well." So we both went gluten.
And that takes a lot for an Italian chef to do that.
I know. I think he just thought he'll try it for a week and then he'll go back to eating gluten again.
Goodbye to my pasta.
Yeah, I'll just do it. Keep the woman happy, we'll be fine.
Have to keep the women happy, really.
A token gesture.
No, there's not like that actually.
Yeah,
it's
so
much more thoughtful than that, really.
So after 3 days, I said, "Oh, this isn't working, is it? I don't feel any different at all." And he went, "Well, actually, I feel really different. I feel more awake in my brain." And I thought, "I don't." And he said, and the inflammation, I noticed his knuckles. He had inflamed arthritic knuckles, and the inflammation went down. And actually, his wedding ring fell off. So that was amazing.
Well, it just. I think what's happened is to combat any disease or anything you have in life, you need to have a presence of mind. The presence of mind in my book works this way. Let's say you always had your hand in this glass whenever you talk, so it's fine. But suddenly you lift it up a little bit and it's not so painful because it's a circle, it goes into your skin. So over even one part you lift off. So you need to really understand and feel what you do. If you feel a little bit better, so there is an improvement. So from maybe the full hand, you go a quarter hand, then half a quarter, then you lift it. Oh, like, I'm not under stress.
Yeah.
Something is changing. So you have to have a presence of mind to understand what was your disability and understand also where do you want to go. You want to be up there or do you want to be down there? What's your goal?
Yes, listening to your body, isn't it?
So with thinking, gosh, maybe he is gluten intolerant, we went off to see a nutritionist, Jenny Phillips, who ran a series of tests and worked out with these tests that he was highly gluten intolerant, pretty much celiac, and had probably been for some years, and we had no idea. So it was really worth doing. And so then she also learnt that he had diabetes type 2 and suggested that we went low carb. I'd never heard of low carb before, but he had started to lose weight and his HbA1c levels had come down a bit. So we thought, gosh, we meant to just try this gluten-free thing, and then that led into the low carb. And then I got on the internet and realised there was great big forums like the low carb program, diabetes.co.uk. This whole world of low carbers that I'd never heard of before, and people who were reversing their diabetes.
Because I guess at
So went
first
low carb.
you probably thought it was what doctors were saying, irreversible and for life. And
Yeah, and we did see a
Yes,
dietitian, and she said just cut back on your portions of
God.
pasta and take sugar out of your tea and coffee. So he did, but we didn't honestly take it very seriously. We should have done.
The big problem about people when somebody comes to us, you got diabetes, mate. You got diabetes.
Diabetes type 2.
And type 2, you got that. And you say, all right, yeah, okay. Then what? Look at the eatwell plate, 60% is carb. Sorry, but I had my breakfast, the most important thing. I had this and that, and now I have to have metformin and other thing. So really is a seriously wrong advice. In my case, I never took any medicine, and that's probably the most important of all. There's no medical record that I'd taken any medicine because I would never prescribe that. And
He would have been, had he carried on, I'm sure.
I would have been, but...
And in fact, he got worse. So he was told he had diabetes type 2. And then because we didn't take it seriously, he got worse and his HbA1c went higher. But for some reason, I don't know, he wasn't ever prescribed metformin.
No.
And he had high enough levels to be prescribed, but
Absolutely,
he wasn't. And then it started falling with this no gluten, lower carbs, so it worked.
So,
and then,
I mean, you touched a nerve with me there. One of my charities is lobbying the government to get rid of the Eatwell guidelines for that very reason, because my belief is that it's so wrong. And if you're going to have a guideline, well, you probably need a different guideline for diabetics than you do for everybody else, because you need to cut that carbs. You're right, a third of that plate at least is carbohydrates.
Yeah, and
sugar,
I wish
and
they
you need
would
to cut right down. Yeah.
Exactly. I would wish that people having diabetes type 2 would be able to say, if you're going to someone's house and they say, oh, are you allergic to anything? And then we always say, oh yeah, Giancarlo has to have a gluten-free diet, but what we should be able to say is, oh yes, I'd love to come round, but I'm carbohydrate intolerant. And for people just to go, oh, okay, I get that. Yeah. So I won't give you potatoes and rice, I'll give you extra vegetables instead. Just as simple as that. And it should just become common parlance that we all know what carbohydrate intolerant means. We all know nut allergies, we all know gluten-free now, dairy-free, vegan, vegetarian, we'll get that, but you should be able to say, oh, I'm carb intolerant.
Yes.
And it will just become part of speech.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to your story. So I won't say you ignored it at the beginning, but you sort of went, oh, we'll just get on with life. And then by realising that you were gluten intolerant, that was more of a trigger afterwards. And then when you started to feel better, and he was probably less hungry,
yes.
and probably
seriously big difference.
Running around with the children and so on and so forth. How did you then transit? Because you've written books already, you've got cook schools going, you've done BBC programmes. How do you then migrate, changing that complete lifestyle from one of Italian cooking and food and so on and so forth, into today where you're very much big ambassadors of sort of the low carb movement?
You wanted to tell the story, didn't you? So Giancarlo suggested to our publishers that we write a book about his reversal of diabetes and type 2, I should say. And Kyle Katie from Kyle Books is our publisher, and she said, I'll do it if you provide a medical expert. So I also asked Jenny if she would write it with me, because we don't have any medical training. So Jenny wrote the science at the beginning, and then we approached David Unwin, Dr. David Unwin and Dr. Jen Unwin, and asked them to be a part of it, and they agreed.
We backed the Annuino. We call them the Annuino.
Instead of the Unwins, the Anwinos.
Because I'm Italian.
We've made them Italian.
It sounds really nice, Annuino.
Annuino. Dottoressa Annuino.
Dottoressa Annuino.
So they agreed, and so they wrote the foreword for us, then 2 separate forewords, and that's how the book arrived. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you say you've done 12 books already, which is amazing in such a short time. And book 13's on the way, and I'm going to take it. It's another low-carb book?
Yes, it is. It's going to be called Reverse Your Diabetes Cookbook, and it's around from March onwards, and you can pre-order it already. And it'll be different recipes, so along the same lines, but some new ideas, new twists, new inventions.
I have to say, actually, this book and what happened with the Daily Mail and the next book is, as far as I'm concerned, is a different life path changing. You know, the Pathfinder. Probably I found my path in life, because it would be absolutely wonderful to convey a message and to be able to help people that they can help themselves without much expenses, and it's really doable. When a couple of incidents, actually, one which is very indicative of something. It might not matter to people, but matters to me. When I was young, I was in the paratrooper, and I also worked in 5-star restaurants, which are the King Juan Carlos, King Hussein, and so many, these kind of people. So you have to be on a certain behavior, okay? And going and being a paratrooper in the Italian army wasn't as hard as the English, but we were quite tough. It taught me a serious discipline, serious discipline, which I'm very grateful, because that is stuck with me all my life. It really has. I think that was the most formative years that I could ever have in my entire lifestyle. I say this because when you've been given an order to do something, you have to really be mindful that that is the order, and you carry on to the end. And when you do something, you have to carry that task to the very end, not just halfway, quarter way. Oh, don't worry, I'll do tomorrow. So in my brain, I get something, I get up in the morning, that's his fact. If tomorrow morning I get up and I decide to do something, will be done, but it has to be
from inside.
Yeah. No, not just chat. Doesn't work. And therefore, when I got up one morning, and the morning before, I went to the private doctor, the doctor now where we live, and this guy is half Italian. And he said to me, "Oh, you have diabetes and you're quite fat." He looked at me, and I said to him, "I'll work with it and I'll change it." The guy looked at me, and I know what he said in his eyes. I know exactly what he meant. He said, "You're a complete fool." Every day he said, "Yeah, of course, because I already paid him 130 quid, you know." No, it's true. But inside me, he upset me so much. I said, "No, mate, you don't know who you're talking to." I know it sounds silly, but this is one point of reference. That I thought, no.
But it's an important point of reference, because many people watching this on the podcast, or listening to it on the podcast, or seeing it on the web, may be diabetic already, thinking it's a challenge, and it is a challenge for everybody to change
I agree.
lifestyle. But if an award-winning Italian chef whose life was pasta, pizza, day in, day out, making a living, being on the BBC together, with your programmes on the BBC, you'd written lots of books already by then, you'd had series on the BBC all around Italian cooking. For you to say, my life is more important to me than my current way of food, if you can do it, then I think that gives great hope to many people out there that are already maybe diabetic or pre-diabetic or overweight. it can be done. And what I think you two have done brilliantly through your books, and certainly the book we've got in front of us here, the Diabetes Weight Loss Cookbook, I think what you've done brilliantly is you have, between you with your sort of artistic background, Katie, and Giancarlo with your Italian cooking background, you've made some amazing recipes that, to me, those recipes in the past would have been carbs based. You've taken the carbs out and they're as tasty, if not tastier than even before. So the point is, for me, is that what you've enabled people to do, I believe, is to say, look, you're not giving up carbs, as in the white starchy processed carbs, you're escaping them. Because if food was boring and bland, the good side of the fence, the healthy side of the fence, then most people wouldn't jump over it. But you can jump over this fence if you're diabetic now, or if you're overweight and trying to lose weight, and the food tastes great, if not better than it did before, and that's down to your creativity as a couple. And I'd like to thank you for that, because I can use your recipes and talk to people with my doctor friends and really say, you're not giving anything up. You're not going to miss anything, because the quality of the food you can be creating at home can be healthy and just as tasty. Sorry, that wasn't a question. It was more of I went off on one then.
No,
but it is true.
no. It's nice to hear.
Food can be
Look,
interesting.
there is a very important thing. If you want to give a message to people, at the end of the day, at the table, we need to wear our soul. Otherwise, the message doesn't go out. It doesn't matter how you look at it. The words matters, but if they're not meant, it doesn't matter really. The fact is that I personally managed to reverse my life. By now I would have had one leg off, that's for sure, or maybe both. But one foot would be off, because that was not the way to go. It really wasn't, absolutely not. When I say I can't recreate the feeling of what it was, but she understands. So this is very important. The other most important thing that happened that really seals it for me, it was when I was driving a petrol car at the time, and I stopped in the M40 to put some petrol on night, because I finished at the restaurant about 12:30. The restaurant life. I like it, don't get me wrong, I'm quite happy. Stopped at the petrol station, put the petrol, then what you do, you get a banana, then you get the chocolate, that's Lindt chocolate, the square 100 grams. Go back in the car, I just parked the car in front of the shop, obviously because the petrol is down, and one little chocolate, oh that's nice, another. By this time, I already was looking after myself quite well, but my eyes were still a bit not very good. So I had the 100 grams of chocolate, all of it, because you go into a frenzy. You do go into a frenzy. But these things, people maybe like Katie, she wouldn't understand, because she doesn't.
I'm not a sugar addict.
No,
that's
correct.
the difference. He is a sugar addict.
But you wouldn't get it, because it's I had enough. You go yourself.
I like one square of dark chocolate, and then I can put it away. But I know that hundreds and hundreds of people aren't like that. I like savoury food more. If that was cheese, I might eat the whole block of cheese, but I'm a cheese addict, but not a sugar addict, and that's different.
So really, she's got that lovely sweet. She says, "Oh, enough, basta." And me, so go in the car, go down the M40, doing fair speed. Suddenly, I can't see nothing. It's like a complete fog. And what I could see was all the lights of the car, foggy. When seriously, when you travel with very lot of water, really rains hard, the spray.
When you pass a lorry and all that spray.
And you see just the little flickery, So I said, oh my goodness. I said, right. I was doing quite a bit of speed, I suppose. And I said to myself, can't see, look at the lights, don't brake, otherwise somebody's going to smack into you and you're going to kill someone. Try to keep on the same line and speed, reduce it but slowly. Indicate left. Any lights, not lights, not left. Any lights, I was in the middle lane, 3-lane, middle lane, go on the first lane, then go on a shoulder and stop. And you see, in life sometimes you're lucky, because if you have some training before, as I was saying to you before, being a paratrooper, you get a lot of discipline. So when it comes to panic, I usually don't panic. When something hit the fan, I get boom.
Yeah.
I just get, don't know.
Yeah. What's that military training of how
I don't
to
know.
deal
It's
with
just the way you are.
situation?
And so that,
but isn't it interesting that, I mean, everyone knows you shouldn't drink and drive, but here you are, probably diabetic already without realising it. Chocolate, that sugar rush, having that same, as dangerous. I mean, losing your eyesight while you're driving.
Really,
very, very dangerous.
So basically, the short of it is that I thought, right, if I would have killed your son or a mum, a dad, how do you feel? Yeah. So I said, this is bell rang enough, last bell. So I said, no, this has to stop. And
it happened to be a weekend, so we both thought he's got to go to the doctor as soon as possible, but he's always so busy, it's always difficult to get a GP appointment, so he found a private doctor who could see him that day. They could spend a whole hour with him. They ran blood tests to see what was the matter with him, and then a week later he had to go back for the results, and they said, yeah, you've got type 2 diabetes. But
how old were the boys at this point?
That was 2011. Yeah. So 9 and 11. 9 and 11. So because the transition became from 2011, 12, 13. Those 2 years, 11, 12, 13, that's when everything happened, that I was up and then I went down and I got back to normal. I lost 3 stones in 16 months or less actually. But let's say if you look at the book, it tells you exactly the scale and when I started, when I finished. Yeah. More or less is correct.
But I think when he did go and see the GP, like about the arthritic knuckles, they would just have time to see one thing, the arthritic knuckles, and so he got sent to see a consultant about arthritis. Had he had an hour, like you do with a private doctor, everyone should be able to do that once in a while, because he was able to mention all the other things, and the doctor had time to say, what else is wrong with you? And then noticing the bigger tummy around the middle, the arthritis, everything all right with going to the loo? Well, I often need to have a wee, so classic symptom again. And anything else? Yeah, I'm often thirsty. So it was that doctor that put all the things together and thought, I'm going to run a HbA1c test with him to see where his blood sugars are. So actually we were so grateful. All happened then, or he would have just seen the GP with probably one symptom, blurred eyesight. He would have got sent to an optician. It would never have been diagnosed because it's all these different things, but you have to put them all together. You have to look at holistically at the person. Well,
thank goodness you were diagnosed, because like you say, you probably were on the way to maybe losing a limb, but also from your 2 boys' point of view, I feel really upset as a parent that my eldest 2 children, they were in their 20s already when I learnt all this stuff. And I think now how thinking I was doing the right thing growing up with all the fruit juices, all the cereals, both my children have weight problems still today, like I do, in the sense that we have to be so strict because I've damaged their metabolism over 20 odd years. And at least my 5 younger children, I've learnt this at a young enough age with them that I haven't really damaged their metabolism yet. And hopefully now they understand food. But also, from saving yourself and yourself, Katie, the fact you had IBS and your children were that sort of age, they've got a good future now because they understand that they've still got to make the right decisions and follow the right path. But at least they understand now the food.
And they go to the gym, they look after themselves, they'll sit down and regularly have all these lovely Italian sauces that we've been making over the years, but they have a lovely meat ragu, but they have it on buttered cabbage leaves rather than pasta. But they've made that choice, and there they are, tearing the cabbage leaves up and steaming them, and really enjoying that and choosing to have that rather than pasta. We've never insisted that they have to go low carb. They have to make that decision for themselves.
But I think without people like yourselves that can really make the food tasty. It's one thing preaching to the country, we've got 2/3 of adults in the UK are overweight. It's one thing preaching saying cut down your carbs, unless you give an alternative that's just as exciting in the kitchen. And I think what you bring with your books and your education now, and the flair that you both have, is that you can make even Italian food really, really, really tasty. Because Italian food you think, it's pizza and pasta, but you've put a whole spin on it with your cooking classes and your books and your restaurants. And I think that's the exciting thing.
And we offer a low-carb menu in both our restaurants now, because we can't just live this life and not offer it to others. So we offer all the traditional pastas and exactly the way any Italian would eat it, but we also offer the alternative, the low-carb alternative. And I do love a challenge. So if someone says to me, right, you've got to make this gorgeous thing like tiramisu with low-carb, you know, I'll do it. And that's coming up in the new book. It's important to be able to eat whatever you like, but in a healthier way.
Absolutely. So look, I never mind shamelessly giving plugs away. Tell us about where are your restaurants and your schools?
We have 2 restaurants, one in Marylebone, one in Bray in Berkshire, and our school, La Cucina Caldesi, is in Marylebone as well. And everything's under caldesi.com.
And I bet you get a lot of pleasure, don't you? Certainly when you're doing the low carb programs, people come in, maybe skeptical at first, maybe a loved one has said, you know, you need to lose some weight, go on this. And what sort of experiences do you find with your clientele coming in and probably, like I say, being very skeptical, but probably leaving going, hey, there's a whole new lease of life?
Yeah, one man said, I've just got to relearn everything that I've been taught over the previous 50 years of my life. I've got to relearn it all. But they get it, they understand it. And that's why I'm glad that the science is well explained by Jenny and David in the book, so that I can say, look, it took me 2 or 3 years to get my head around this. Like, really? You can have fat? Really? And, you know, you can't have sugar. And so I just kept asking questions all the time to David and to Jenny and Jen, and they wrote the science so that everyone can understand it. And we've got great diagrams in the book so people can see, right, I understand now. So all we want to do is give people the information. The choice is up to them.
And so we talked a lot about diabetes and the fact that you are living proof that you can put it in remission. But let's talk about some of the other symptoms that you had, and your IBS as well, Katie. So, Katie, you had IBS. Giancarlo, you had really bad arthritis in the knuckles by the sounds of it.
But also I was suffering for peripheral neuropathy, which is a very important fact.
In his feet, wasn't it?
In my feet.
Yeah.
And I think my feet, they go probably a good 90 or 95% recovered so far. To have peripheral neuropathy is really sad, actually, and because you're walking, your mobility changes, yes. So you become an immobile person. And I think the diabetes has left me now with some arthritic problems, which I still carry, and some days I'm struggling to walk, and because or is arthritic, not diabetic. Mm-hmm. But the scar that diabetes leaves is immense. And also, as a man, you know, nobody ever mentioned when you make love what's happening, and when you go less stimulation or more or less. And we've had a time that things were not as good as, and I can see the time has changed, it's different. So you have a better relationship, and so it is a help all around, because regardless of anything, you know, if you're with your wife and everything and you love your family, there has to be some intimacy, and it's important to have it. Otherwise, what's the point being with a person? We need to have what we've been put into this world for. And so that's also a thing that everybody escapes, especially us boys. We don't want to talk about it. Everybody's embarrassed. Mm-hmm. Embarrassed about what? You get a woman and then you have to run away. That's embarrassing. Yeah. But when you talk about it and sort it out, it's less embarrassing. Yeah. So also the fact of going to the loo more often. And unfortunately, one doctor put me on methotrexate a while back, thinking there was something else, and that has caused some scars, some stuff, which I really, really regret. But that's unfortunately, it's very interesting to look that you can't have a regrettable life, otherwise you become cantankerous and very bitter. Cantankerous and bitter is not the way to be. You be all the time jealous and terrible and not very nice life. So we need to look forward to, I made a mistake, it wasn't right, but now it's done.
But you made a mistake. This is the thing that annoys me, and why I wrote my first book, Primal Cure, is that you say you made a mistake. And I can say I made a mistake, but we didn't know. We were doing the things that for a couple of generations were things that we thought was healthy food choices. So, and I think that's why I'm here today doing the podcasts and the programs on TV and interviews like this, because I just want to get the word out there, because you didn't make a mistake. You didn't know. You just
No,
didn't know. Somebody said to me
I-
once that having carbs and more carbs is like suicide. And I went, no, it's not. Because that would be the case if you knew it and carried on doing it, for sure. But you didn't know, so you didn't make a mistake. You were fed the wrong information by the
Yeah,
Italian
you're right.
government.
I
by the
agree.
British
You're right.
government, so-
I've got nothing to say. But the fact is, as a mistake, I feel very sad, and that is one of the worst regrets I could ever have, is not to have known that the food was poisoning me. But the most wonderful thing is the food now is make me feel better. But is all in the mind of what you call sacrifice, or what you call a chore, what you call a tough choice or something. I think there's two divisions here. One is your mind yourself, say, right, what do I do? And then you decide. And two is the food that you see on this side. There's a big cakes and sugar. And when you go past by, that your brain says, I want that, then you go and grab it and do it. So what you said in this part of the brain, I will change, you actually are not making any changes, simply because it's only one little part of your brain said, oh, don't do it, but the rest is grabbed by this immense urge and surge towards that.
Yes.
And it seems to me that every diabetes person we met, they like puddings, they like sugar, they like anything, bread, they go, you can't go to dinner.
It's usually bread or puddings.
Yeah, you can't go to dinner and you have one basket of bread to begin with, and then you have all the other dinner, and then you have the puddings as well.
Yeah.
I'm dreadfully sorry to see such an attitude, and having restaurants, it will become for us, and I really did mean this more sincerely, it will become for us a challenge of choice for us, what we're going to do, how we're going to tackle that.
Yeah, 'cause certainly from a commercial point of view, and correct me if you're wrong, I mean, I have a small restaurant, nowhere near as successful as yours, that I own around the corner, but I one day said to them, why do you still keep putting bread out at the beginning? It's the best thing ever, Steve. I said, why is that? They went, well, they fill themselves up on the bread, and then therefore we can do smaller portion sizes. And I went, but this is absolutely ridiculous. So we tried to take the bread out completely in our restaurant, then everybody stopped coming. So now we have much smaller buns on the table for people. But that is the problem. And my dad diabetes type 2, and still today, he said, I don't eat much bread. But I observe him. He has a bread with his breakfast. He'll have a bread roll before his lunch, and it's just...
No, it's unfortunately, carbs seems to be created by us to be the placation time for the masses, and if you see in some old films or something, what they did to the people that throw loaves of bread at the baker, they were now distributed bread and everybody was happy. But then the difference of crops now is so big that even the wheat is not grown as it used to be grown. So the chromosome of the wheat is changed, so our digestion is changed, and the intake of carbs is far too excessive, and then the movement, we don't have movement. Quality, quantity, movement is not in the book. I don't know if it's the next, but I always said quality, quantity, movement is the most important thing. Quality is the food that you choose to eat.
Yes.
Quantity also has a big value, because when I eat, although now I eat I eat food that is good for me.
Yes.
All the food is proper, if you wish. Let's not go into that. So, but I overeat, I put on weight. I put on weight. So it shows that the weight, maybe the distribution will be different, I don't know, but I put on weight. But if I have the quantity that is correct to eat, I'm not saying 300 grams is 150 grams one steak, and don't use the words moderate, because moderate doesn't exist. And then obviously is the quality, quantity, and the movement. The movement, if you do more movement, obviously your energy, you use it. So really is the change of lifestyle that we have on outside world, which it doesn't present ourselves to cure ourselves in a decent way, because you ought to shut down so many food product production, so many food production, to really and concentrate on what would be a better nutritional value, and then you see that people will get much better very fast.
Yeah. So quality, quantity. And do you find as well that when you're eating the quality fats, quality proteins, cutting down on the processed foods, that your quantity goes down anyway because you just feel full faster?
Yeah, exactly. When you include fat in your diet, good healthy fats, you can't eat loads and loads of salmon, for example, can you?
No.
You can't eat an endless amount of salmon. You get full quite quickly on things like
Except
oily
if you go
fish.
to Canada.
Well, we couldn't though, could we? We went to Canada and we were offered this salmon taster plate. Actually, that illustrates the point well. It was a round plate with all these different kinds of salmon on it, and we got, say it was like a clock. We got to about 6 o'clock. We couldn't finish the rest of it. We couldn't eat salmon for 3 months afterwards. 3 months, anything. We just couldn't even look at salmon afterwards.
Too much of a good thing then.
Yeah, but oily fish, you know, your point, fat, it's fat and protein, fills you up really quickly. You can't go on eating it, so you do have smaller portions.
So quantity will already come down because you're eating the good foods, and get out and move more and walk.
Movement that does help.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, any kind of movement, it makes you healthier, really.
We're not designed to sit still, are we?
Also, you need. I mean, Katie, an example. She goes to the gym. She does lots of stuff, which is really good, and you know, she's kept an amazing figure, really.
I want to come back to the title of this hour. So, a life-saving lifestyle. So, I think what the message I'm trying to get across.
Life-changing,
a life-changing lifestyle,
both,
or life-saving, changing. All those words. Is that what great about you two is you've helped us realise that making that change can still be tasty, can still be exciting, can still leave you a feeling of just sheer pleasure with your pizza bases made out of anything, of courgettes through to your desserts that looks like any other cake, top quality cake, but it's got all the carbs or most of the carbs taken out. It doesn't have to be boring, and therefore you're not even sacrificing. You talked earlier on, Giancarlo, about the fact that a lot of people think that you're giving up or you're sacrificing, but surely what you're really sacrificing if you carry on eating the carbs, you're sacrificing, as you said, a good night's sleep because you're up and down the toilet all the time. You're sacrificing playing football with the children. You're sacrificing years of your life. You're sacrificing time, you're sacrificing all these things by not making the change. And thank goodness, I think my message today is because you're an award-winning Italian chef, you've done it, and yet you're eating pasta twice a day in the past. You did it because it was life-threatening, and if you can do it with a love of Italian food, then hopefully that sends out a really good message to everybody watching and listening that it can be done.
Yep, absolutely. If he can do it, anyone can.
Well, I'd love to thank you both for coming in. I'm going to ask you one question each, and then we'll call it a wrap there. You've seen, obviously, your husband from when you met, from the very, very difficult times. What symptoms should we be looking at with our loved ones that say maybe they're on that road to diabetes before it's too late?
I was married to fat man on the sofa, asleep.
So just that lethargic, overweight.
And I expect there's lots and lots of wives out there who could also describe their husbands as fat man asleep on the sofa.
Okay. And Giancarlo, what advice would you give to people maybe that are already overweight? What's the first steps they can take to look as slender and healthy as you do?
They need to really get this book, read the first 50 pages, assimilate that in their minds, and then make up your mind what they want. They want a hard life or a good life. And that's it really, because whatever advice you give to people is never a good advice, because they have to work it out for themselves.
Yes.
They need to look at their surrounding and find out what they do wrong to their family, not to themselves. Because themselves, it doesn't matter. And you get your children running around you to do your shoelaces and pick you up and have tea from the chair and from the table. Oh, that's already making other people prisoners. But love is an infinity, so they will do anything for you. But I think they should really read first what it's all about, and then do some soul searching and find out how they can deal with it.
And that's great advice. You know, to make a real lasting change, you've got to buy into it, and that's that investment time, sitting down, reading your book, or you know, many other books out there, reading the book.
Unfortunately, the wife can help, but you are the most important person to help. Yeah. And as soon as you see some signs that you feel better, you will be encouraged by look at the little signs.
And the food's not horrible.
It's fantastic.
So, you know, my challenge was to not just say you can't have pasta, but you can have this, or you can't have a Kit Kat, but you can have a few walnuts and some dark chocolate. So you've always got to say to people, okay, you can't have that, but you can have this. Otherwise they just feel sad and deprived, you know.
Yeah. And there are so many tasty things you can have without the carbs.
Yeah, absolutely.
People think that strawberries must be full of sugar because strawberries are so tasty. But strawberries are great.
Yes,
but the shops, they're full of carbs because number one, it's easy to do. It doesn't cost much. You sell the higher price, and people buy because it's satisfying for the moment, and then another snack 2 hours later satisfying for that moment, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be fooled by those aisles and aisles of carb-loaded packaged foods. And if you're still not convinced at the end of this hour, then I've got 2 or 3 suggestions. First one would be to buy the Caldesi's book, which is full of recipes, and a new one coming soon as well. And it's not one or the other, you need both. They're just more recipes along the low-carb regime. Secondly, if you love your cooking and you want some more inspirations, then go to one of your cooking schools. Here in the UK, 3 different locations, you can go and learn to cook low carb. And if you're saying, well, actually, before all of that, I just want to try some great food and see if it really tastes just as good without the carbs, then visit one of your amazing restaurants. And if someone wants to find out more about the schools and your restaurants, what's your
Everything's
website?
on the website caldesi.com, CALDESI.com.
Well, thank you very, very, very much. You both look fabulously healthy, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to see if I can dig out the old Return to Tuscany BBC programme and see you
how you used to
look before you look this beacon of health. Thank you very, very much
for
joining me today.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
If you enjoyed this podcast, then why not subscribe to the full series so you can hear from all the incredible health professionals we spoke to. For the full story, you can also get the book Fat and Furious, written by Steve Bennett, available on Amazon. And to say a huge thank you for watching us here on YouTube, we are even offering you an exclusive Amazon discount code so you can get yourself a copy. For more details, head to the description below.